I call to order the Waverly City Council for August 15th, 2016. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed by our city clerk, Carla Geyer?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion seconded. Council discussion. All in favor signify with yes.
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 Opposed with no. It becomes our agenda. Is there a motion to approve the July 25th and August 1st minutes, also as distributed by our city clerk?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Council discussion. All in favor signify with yes.
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 Opposed with no. It's become our official minutes. We welcome back for our second meeting our guest council person for the month of August, Chuck Mashek. I knew I'd get it wrong. It was good to have you here, even though I wasn't here. And it's always fun to be up firing line here. So you got full voice. Anything more you'd like to say as we lead into tonight?
Not at this time.
Okay. Again, welcome back. This time I invite any public comments on any items not on tonight's agenda. Any comments by the public on anything that's not on tonight's agenda? No, Dennis is coming later. We're full. But he is here if there are any questions on the firefighters, things as it comes up tonight. So we thank you for your presence. I'd like to also at this time to recognize Jennifer Main. She was just honored by the Government Finance Officers Association. Jennifer got that Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, which seems to be hard-earned, but we seem to get it every year. And now you get some great credit for, I think this is not only just for accuracy of numbers, but the checks and balances and all the structures. Is that right?
It is. Hey, I don't get to speak too often, so, it's those little things that I can't handle. It's a team effort from everybody.
It is a team effort.
It involves everybody in the city.
And all of our city staff have to spend within limits and document, and it's a whole huge process. But it's a great achievement, and I don't want this to go by so quick that the public doesn't realize how well run the city is. So we thank you for representing us in the numbers that verify how hard we work and how efficient we work and how honestly we work. We have 6 items on tonight's consent calendar. They are a Tetro electric bill for the biosolids spill that we had. We have a Peterson contractors bill for the dry run. We have the Waverly Area Veterans Post. They have that new location, which requires approval of a liquor license. We have the Firefighters Association's liquor license to approve. We have the Oktoberfest liquor license to approve, and our July cash disbursements. Is there a motion?
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify with yes.
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 Opposed with no. Unanimously approved. Regular business item number 1 is the purchase of a skid loader for Tab Ray. That's Schumer.
Yeah, it's not for me.
City Administrator for the public. How will this be used?
We're going to use this in a couple different areas. I believe it's primarily cemetery is the use, but I suppose if we had used the golf course or other places, we certainly could. But primary use is cemetery. This is a fiscal 16-17 budgeted item.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Motion, please.
I guess I'll move approval of purchase of a Bobcat S650 rubber tire skid loader from Dykey Implement for the low bid of $42,911 for the Leisure Services Department.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Council discussion. Public input to influence our vote. All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed with no. Unanimously approved. Congratulations. Tab Ray. Regular business item number 2 is to approve contract for the sidewalk repairs for District 6, which includes my southwest Waverly area where I reside. Let's go directly to a motion.
I would move Resolution 1668 approving contract bond and certificate of insurance for Feldman Concrete of Dyersville, Iowa for the city sidewalk repairs 2016 and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for the bid price of $59,525.
Second, please.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Council discussion. We must not be getting anything negative coming back to us. This is often a time when we get feedback. Public input before we vote. Roll call vote on this one.
Kangas,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
The Resolution 16-68 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 3 is a change order for the airport runway. City Administrator, any comments?
This is actually a reduction in a change order, which are the ones we like the most. I'll confer with Engineer Mike Cherry. I believe this is still quantity-based, Mike. Is that the reason for the reduction? Mike him.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is it's for a couple of field revisions that occurred during construction and for the final reconciliation project quantities. The only thing left to do on the project is there's about 5 acres of permanent seeding that will now take place. Otherwise, yeah, we're looking at being almost $19,000 under contract when all the quantities are added up.
Pretty good. Motion, please.
Move Resolution 1669 approving the change order number 1 to the contract with Concrete Foundations Incorporated for the Waverly Municipal Airport Runway 1129 reconstruction project in the amount of $18,962.35 decrease, and a pay request number 3 for the amount of $434,617.04.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Council discussion.
Again, this is split with the FAA reimbursement, those type of things.
Yeah, they'll get 90% of the benefit and we'll get 10%.
It's called a good deal. Public input. Roll call vote, please.
Waldstein,
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Resolution 16-69, unanimously approved. Regular business item number 4 is resolved to waive review rights on 2 parcels of land just outside of our city limits in southwest Waverly. City Administrator, any comments? This is potential annexation land, if I got that right. And are we okay here as a city?
I don't think there's any concerns, which is what the request is for, but I'm going to let Bill elaborate a little more on it. I'm not as familiar with this process going forward. I've read it, but it's not something I'm that familiar with.
It's a split that allows for some different access to a property that's existing, so that they don't have to go all the way around through the old radar facility to get out of their home. So it's really a pretty simple thing. And generally, we wouldn't in the past have reviewed this. Our agreement with the county hasn't been renewed yet, and so we have review rights, and we have to either say yes or no on this one. So we're suggesting that it's a positive thing, and we should pass that.
Okay. Formal motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 1670, approving to waive the right to review proposed subdivisions outside of Waverly's 2-mile boundary for parcels D and E located southwest of the city limits.
Second, please.
Second.
2 seconds. Council discussion.
What do you normally review when you go through this process?
If this was really in an area where we thought there might be an annexation, we'd worry about whether it complied with our land use plan and whether it was consistent for development with being taken into the city at some point in the future. I don't know that that's true in this situation as far as annexing this area south. So that we're really just, this isn't an area that we've ever taken an active interest in reviewing. So we just have to go through the motions for this one to be able to review or say pass on the review.
It would not be a very good candidate probably for city sewer service.
Right.
outside of the-
That's the point. We wouldn't want to extend services out here.
And there's already rural water there, I believe.
Right, right. That's why it's really not an annexation area that is on the radar at all, so to speak.
And it's coming to us from planning and zoning also, right?
Yeah.
They reviewed it as well, so.
They reviewed it and recommended that we
Yeah.
just pass on it.
Public input. Roll call vote, please.
Kangas,
Yes.
Waldstein,
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Resolution 16-70 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 5 is to approve the 90% reimbursement cost for the from the FAA for expenses involving the Burkle property for the Airport Safety Zone project. Let's go directly to a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 1671, approving an FAA grant agreement for federal assistance for the acquisition and administrative costs to date for the Airport Safety Zone project at the Waverly Municipal Airport.
Second, please.
Second.
Motion seconded. Council discussion. Public input. Roll call vote, please.
Lampy,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Resolution 16-71, unanimously approved. Regular business item number 6 is a review and discussion of the progress schedule of the 3rd Street Southeast Bridge Repair Project. We are privileged to have Casey Faber with us to present from WHKS, and we're getting to know you very well. And the
Yeah, it's good
public,
to be back.
You'll be walking downtown, and there'll be a first name basis here. And they'll say, "Welcome to our store, Casey."
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get quite that familiar. I hope that that's not necessary, but we're moving forward. I believe everybody's received the copy of the geotechnical report from Braun. Some may be surprised. We found that the piers are highly unlikely to be on bedrock. So a small change in our assumption, but no real change in project cost in the grand scheme of things. It falls within that contingency that we use to make initial estimates. And I think that we talked about that back in January when we presented all the items, how we come up with estimates at that stage. We use a contingency factor based on DOT work of around 20%. And so the $50,000 cost approximate offset that adding piling will have to those piers is really within the large contingency that we started the project with. So, it's not a major deal from our end. Whether we're designing pile footings or spread footings, it's not going to be a change in fee for us. We're not coming and asking for any more money. We're moving ahead. We submitted preliminary plans at the end of August, and we're moving ahead. We've got a lot of the superstructure elements designed, and we're modeling things in 3D and trying to make sure that all our connections are going to fit right as we replace some bad bearings and move forward with pier design now that we've got this information back. So we continue to move ahead and put drawings together for November and for the letting in February. So I could take any questions you might have at this time, or yeah.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you say it's not much, but I'm just always trying to stay on top of this because I'm getting so many questions and so much criticism from the public about the money that we're spending on this. So Just want to make sure I'm thinking about it correctly and reviewing it accurately. So since the original estimate, we had the additional $500,000 that we all voted on, which passed. I think, I forget the exact vote, but it passed. And now this does not require that kind of change to the service agreement with you because you consider it to be a small addition. And the small addition, if I read the materials correctly, is about $50,000 that you had not estimated before, but that you're including or will pay for out of the 10% contingency fund. So I think if I did my math right, that's about 2% or almost 2%. So again, just to be clear, we've added really $550,000 to the estimate in a way. And we're well on our way to spending almost $200,000 on engineering costs. So what else could we possibly expect between now and bid letting for that other 8% in the contingency?
We don't foresee anything.
Okay.
We have no more planned investigations. We need no further information as far as information from the field. And so we've got all the information we need, and there's nothing on our radar because we know the condition of the steel that we can see, and so we know exactly what we're planning to replace and are moving forward with that. And you're right, it is a piece of that contingency, and part of that contingency was because there were some unknowns. And so if you think about a remodel of a house, you might go to remodel your kitchen and plan to have to redo some plumbing because of some known issues, and you may find that wiring is, and most contractors are going to give you a range of prices or say this is the price for these services, and that's what we try to do. We estimate what we know, and the contingency is there to cover what we don't know. And so the quantities that we knew about in general, the steel quantities that we estimated ahead, the concrete, all those things have been thought of ahead, and this was the only real big unknown following our previous investigations. So
That's good to know. And I guess just because of the feedback I've been getting, not exclusively, but definitely majority of people, I guess I will just review again. We're talking about a $550,000 increase in the estimate, more or less, that we can cover. 50,000 of it, 500 we've already added. And all of that totaled in terms of estimate is about $700,000 more than a new bridge would cost.
Yep. That cost, would be good to point out, is the new bridge with the $1 million of federal funds that the city doesn't currently have access to. It would have to wait again until the fiscal year 18
Correct.
came
We
around.
We don't currently have access to it, but we've been offered it every year for the last many years.
Those construction estimates are really similar in total cost, but the number you're talking about is with that.
Yes, it is with that. Thank you. Yep, that's true. Yeah.
Now, would this addition be, regardless of what option we chose, this addition would probably be included in, say, if we did a 2-lane bridge, the additional cost for piling and that?
Yeah, definitely, because we would need to drive piling at any of the substructure units. Because if we put a new 2-lane bridge in, we're going to put new piers in, and we're going to put new abutments in. And so it'd probably be a little bit of an increase, but again, within the contingency likely of any of those options.
Yep. I'm just saying that irregardless of what path we would have chosen.
Yeah, it has impacts on any project in the region.
Right,
Yep.
we would have seen that, and probably more because the piers would have been larger and more substantial.
Yeah, it very well can be, yeah. The great thing is, we went into it with 100-year-old plans that in some ways indicated that there may be piles present, and in other ways are so contrary to how we put plans together now that there was information that said if that's not in these plans, we don't assume that there's piles there. We've seen major flood events through town, and the stream bed has been really stable, and we haven't seen scour problems, and another good indication of bedrock really near the surface. And so we made an assumption based on our best judgment in talks with the city and in our experience in the area, and we're really close to bedrock, so there'll be short piles. I'm just finished up a project where we're talking about 125-foot piles. We're talking about 30-foot piles here. So we've got a good situation for piles since if that's the case. So
So the existing piers do have piles down to bedrock, you think? Or no?
Most likely, based on that distance, at the period, it would be hard to imagine that they had cofferdams and went that deep with a foundation on rock. But we won't know until we start removal. So
That's interesting,
yeah.
that they'd stayed there that long with.
Yeah, well, timber piles rot when they're near the air-water barrier, and so underground they don't. I bet that they're timber piles based on the time frame too, and
Right.
they don't rot when they're fully submerged, so they're kind of protected down there.
In past conversations, you've kind of alluded to the bidding climate. Have you seen any movement there?
It's a unique project. It's a great question. We have seen some bids come back lower. Mike and I had a discussion a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this cost right here, and we had just received bids back from a project we did near Dubuque, and it came back around 60% of what we estimated. The projects are very different, but the construction cost was a lot lower than we expected. There's no promises in that. We estimate, we don't estimate high, we estimate on best information, and so based on the climate at the time of making the estimate. Right now, it seems like people are competing for laborers and not for work. And so it's still a competitive climate. There's a lot of work out there, and people can be picky with the jobs that they bid at. And so prices are still higher than they had been in years past. As the work continues to increase, the prices begin to go down somewhat. But we haven't seen a drastic decrease in bridge construction prices. The project by Dubuque was a preliminary phase where there was a lot of grading work being done and channel work being done, and so it's in the realm of bridge work, but doesn't involve the construction of a bridge. So it was a different type of work, but that's the most recent project I've seen numbers for.
But Casey, when you say it's a competitive environment, you mean there are a lot of bridge projects out there for bridge construction.
Yes.
And so the construction companies have their pick, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's more work out
Yeah.
there right now than
Yeah.
Yep.
And probably, and that's what would escalate
Yep.
a bid.
Yeah, because if
Yeah.
you can make good money on a relatively standard bridge, going after something of higher risk, you're going to inflate your overhead factor, so to speak. So
And a custom bridge would be a higher
like
risk. Like ours?
Yeah, a custom project like that is going to inherently have some unique aspects, some design characteristics that aren't, typical in like a pre-stressed beam bridge or a slab bridge that they're real common to building. But
Reason for kind of asking that question is good to hear that maybe there's a trend the right way for us. But I get questions from folks with some of the price increases we've seen here. What if we get to February's bid letting and the council makes a decision that it's just not feasible based on the cost? What happens? I mean, it's basically an 18-month process, I guess, to get to February. Are we going to see another 18-month process?
It'd really probably be one of the best possible times to get bids in, because it's about the same time that the city will be notified whether or not they're eligible for the $1 million of state funds again, which would go towards a new bridge. We can't start anything now with the assumption or hope that we'll get those kinds of funds. And so if the city knows that they would be on the list and would be receiving those funds, and the bids come in higher than you're comfortable with and you decide to reject the bid, it would be really the best time to move forward. The great thing is we've got soil borings. Mike and his staff are already working, and they've done I'm sure you all saw it. I saw it up on some screens, the historical documentation that's happening. That needs to happen no matter what happens next. And so some of those things are kicked into motion, which would accelerate the schedule. And so it wouldn't be another 18 months. We could probably have plans, September or late fall, somewhere in that range. September would maybe be pushing things, depending on how it all goes and what the process looks like. But
I guess in that same discussion with folks is the questions come up, could we go forward today with two projects? One, continue with what we're doing here on the repair and bid at the same time a new one. It would give the council a better picture, because again, through this whole discussion, it's been tough because we don't have solid numbers until we get to that
Yeah,
bidding process.
it's a really good question. It's a great thought. The process gets really murky with permitting, so you'd have to pursue 2 permits because the work type would be different with the DNR and floodplain. And we would right now need to go out and start getting additional survey information for that other project. And there'd be no federal funds. So at that point, based on our estimates, you're looking at really equal cost projects for a new bridge. Even if the new bridge came in at a lower cost than the replacement bridge, if you ran them parallel, there'd be no money eligible because you've pursued that work ahead of being awarded those funds. And so it could get really complicated, and then you'd pass on that opportunity. And the next step would have to be talking to people with the state, and I can't imagine it'd be very favorable for them to know that you're going in planning to reject one of the projects. It's not a positive way to enter a situation like that. So
That's helpful. I hadn't.
yeah, it was
The eligibility.
yeah,
piece of
it's a
it.
great thought, and it's just not real conducive to getting the money available if it becomes available again.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure it would
yeah.
send mixed messages to contractors.
Yes.
Why put the time and effort into bidding 2 projects?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I got a couple items I want Casey to cover. So there's 5 topics on the agenda memo that we want to talk about, and he touched upon, the preliminary plans are done, and the geotech report is done, and he's going to proceed forward with moving to the next stage, which is check plans. And when do you anticipate having those check plans done? And along with that, will there be a updated cost estimate?
Yeah, exactly right. Because at check plans, we call them 100% unapproved, and the unapproved part comes from you. So from our end, they're done 100%. So we have in our mind final quantities. We know that there may be comments from Mike and his staff that we'll adjust, but we'll have a much better picture of final quantities and use the bid prices that have been trending up until November is when check plans will be turned in. So we'll have a lot more recent bid prices to apply to our known quantities to give a better construction cost estimate at that time.
And when do we begin the permitting process with the Corps of Engineers, and what permits are required?
The nice thing is that we are not putting anything different in the path of the stream, so we aren't needing all of the permits that are required if we would be doing a new bridge where we're getting permits for the floodway and everything. So we need an Army
404 permit?
Yeah, a 404 permit. This is not my area expertise. Brian Birkland in our office does all of our hydraulics and all this permitting, and he's fantastic at it. We will be getting the minimal permits for doing work in the stream, but not for constructing a structure that would change the floodway or floodplain or anything like that. So that'll happen in the next couple of weeks.
106 permit for the bridge, historic part of the bridge?
Yep, and you're working on that, is that right?
Yes, Marla Svensson has done the site inventory form, so this document was attached and included with your information. So Sarah was working with Marla's on taking photographs for her, so got her wearing a couple of hats here. And working with Marlis, we're making sure that this information is put together no matter what decision the council makes, whether it's to repair it, replace it, or just leave it alone. This is all valid information. It does go to the Corps of Engineers at the time we initiate the permitting process. And then the Corps will require that it be passed on to SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Organization, for their review and comment as well. This is the process we went through on the Dry Run Creek with the homes. Okay, so I know that both Casey and myself have received phone calls from at least one member of the community wondering about what that process is. And what we've explained is that we're covering all bases and that we are following the submittal process through the Corps of Engineers and then to SHPO.
Yep. And like Mike said, it applies no matter what the outcome come February or moving forward is. So The documentation will all be there. The thing that would change would be our approach to the hydraulic permitting, because we'd need to do new calculations if we went to a new structure sometime beyond February. So,
Next item we have is researching outside funding sources for this. And I reached out to Kevin Blanchard at Intercog because some things that have been brought up are, what about statewide TAP funding, REAP funding? Those are some things that have come up. And so give you a copy of the email correspondence between myself and Kevin. And in that, what he talks about is the statewide TAP, and this is federal funding. This is federal money distributed and managed by the state. And there's $1 million annually. They did extend the application deadline out to, I believe, December 1st. So if this is something we want to pursue, that's fine. But as Kevin indicates here, the maximum grant amount is like $200,000. And we're really struggling to see the value in that, because taking it from local funding to federal funding, you pay a premium for that because of the hoops you have to jump through. The contractor has to participate in federal wage requirements for all employees. And the number I'm used to hearing is like a 10% increase. So do you, in order to get $1, raise the cost $1? So we're not seeing that as a great option. Regionally, the Intercog gets $184,000 a year in TAP funding to distribute for various projects. So again, there's not even $200,000 available. That money has already been programmed 4 years out, so it wouldn't be even available till 2021. Same thing with the surface transportation funding. This is the source of funding that's been used to rebuild our local streets. Most recently, 16th Street Southwest, we got regional federal aid money for that. And again, those funds are programmed 5 years out. Also, as an organization, the members decide whether or not to fund projects. They would not view this favorably as a repair project. So I don't think that's a viable source of funding. The city bridge funds, that's for replacement only. We've been through that discussion with the state that they're not going to support state. These are federal or state dollars going towards a repair project. And so then we get down to the last source of funds that Kevin identified as REAP. And he's saying that it must be on the National Registry, and that, past practice, this source of funding has been used to really go towards libraries, archives, museums. There's no precedence for putting it towards a bridge. We will pursue any source of funding you want, but we're not seeing anything here that would net out a return.
For repair.
Or repair. When, you get $1 in federal funding, now you have to treat the whole project as a federally funded project.
The $1 million, again, if, the scenario that was outlined earlier, if the bids come in too high and we end up, looking at something else, let's say a new bridge, the $1 million that we would likely get for that, is that also subject to the federal?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
so your estimate, Casey, for that does not include that, is that correct?
no, it doesn't, but to a degree, it sort of does.
Okay.
Because you're talking about new bridges, and so there's already a much more standardized baseline cost that's a lot more definable. And so
it wouldn't be necessarily 10% more, which I know at the college we use that too for any historic things because of the
reason
labor
being
costs
that we use that
increasing.
same contingency
Yeah.
when a lot more of a standard is known. And so part of the contingency, so to speak, could be in that federal wage rate, that would apply. So that's not what it's intended for, but you can kind of look at it as part of the offset. So I wouldn't anticipate that you'd see that same increase for that, or a drastic change because of the way we use the contingency, the same percentage value.
Yeah, thanks.
The last time we have is kind of our marketing plan and public outreach, or not public outreach, but contractor outreach. And so this is something that we do on most all city projects, is we do direct mailings and advertisement to let contractors become aware of work that's coming up for bid in Waverly. So this is kind of a standard type flyer that we would send in the mail that gives the particulars of the project, what is. But we see with this project that we'd go even further, probably provide a lot of photographs and along with it, and get some, probably work with Casey on some better descriptions as to what the project involves. And we've already begun that contractor outreach. I believe you've been in contact with some, because we want to make sure that this is a buildable project, that there are, to make it appealing to the contractors, there is value in reaching out to them as we proceed forward. Additionally, the state of Iowa has a list of pre-qualified contractors. So you can go to the Iowa DOT's website, and they have a pre-qualification list for lots of different types of work, going down to structures and bridges. There are 55 contractors identified as pre-qualified to build bridges in the state of Iowa. Many of these contractors, most probably are from Iowa, but it also includes the surrounding area: Minnesota, Illinois, Missouri, Nebraska. This casts the net as wide as possible within the Midwest. So we will probably initiate direct mailings to all 55 of these contractors, probably at the point where we have check plans done, and start, that outreach. I guess we have to decide whether we want to hold like a pre-bid meeting, schedule those types of things, invite contractors in. That has been very beneficial and helpful on certain types of projects. This is one that may be very helpful in addressing some of their questions and concerns going forward. So we feel that we have a pretty good handle on identifying in those contractors, casting that net as wide as possible. Of the 55, realistically, how many out there may be capable to doing this type of project? Maybe a dozen.
Yeah.
And hopefully we would get 3 to 6 that would actually submit bids on it.
Why did you have the structures highlighted with the 22 contractors?
Well, they have, it was specialty work, and Casey was in communication with the Iowa DOT bridge office or
Office of
contracts,
yep.
and which contractors do we want? Because some are listed under both, some are listed just for bridges, some are listed under structures, under specialty work. And so we had asked the question, well, given our type of project, which contractors do we want to go out and market the work to? And the response was, it's the bridge contractors.
So the 22 specialty work structures contractors would not be part of the 55? There.
Some of them overlap. The
Okay.
answer, there's, so that we have these work categories, but there's no clear description. And so it was a learning experience for me just to talk to some of the DOT staff about that. And they're related to bridge work, but not necessarily bridge contractors. So they have a specialization where they might act as a subcontractor to a bridge contractor for bridge projects. And so they recommended that we pursue the 55, and if work is necessary that one of the 22 would complete, they'd likely be hired as a sub and not the prime.
So you might split the project between contractors, one for concrete and one for the steel work, is that?
Well, a prime contractor would, ahead of submitting a bid, obtain subcontractors that they would submit their bid with, and so some of those 22 may be part of a team that is submitted.
So it's not an all or nothing.
No.
I mean, you could split that up into different or the contractor would be.
Yeah,
the
and
primary.
those 55 have this same list and work with preferred subs, and so they're going to go with their best team.
Right. So like those 55 contractors, they're interested in putting a bid package together. They'll go to these bridge painting companies
Sure.
to act as a subcontractor.
Right. Yeah.
The question is, do we market the project to the painting contractors, or do we leave that up to those that are going to function as the prime?
No, and as I read through this too, there was talk that we have no choice on the method of how we replace or do this work now. It's not going to be done in place; it has to have to be taken off.
Yeah, with pile driving necessary, where we had hoped that we could leave it as an option to the contractor. I was skeptical to any contractor that would want to put shoring up and try and construct a pier without it in place. I really feel a lot more comfortable with the bridge needs to be moved off site because number one, all of that construction work replacing the different members is going to happen on the ground and not on a temporary support.
I think you see a significant reduction in cost that way as well, since you're not working above with safety and your sandblasting media and all that.
Yeah, painting is essentially easier. The contractors that we spoke to said that they would definitely be of the preference to completely move the bridge before we knew that was really required. And so I think it probably simplifies the plans, making a more clear option. We won't specify exact means and methods, but we're going to direct them this way. And I think it's probably the best, most constructible outcome. Rather than building a sock, you can build a tent to paint in. And there's a lot of benefits to having the truss spans completely moved.
And not to mention the danger of having your shoring washed away if we had a 5-inch rainfall. And it's a lot more dependable, I guess, the construction process would be.
Yeah. Other good news is that Waverly Utilities will be able to actually take down the power lines. So the ones that are just downstream, you can see them in the picture here. They'll actually be able to be disconnected and taken out of the way, so they won't interfere with any crane work.
Sure. We've talked with the gas company about isolating the main already, and so a lot of the challenges to moving them have kind of been addressed. And you're just asking about enough room.
Is there space in the park there that they would be able to do that?
Dan's backyard, too.
I wasn't so sure about that.
I'll rent you a spot.
To the east, I would think looks like there is, but I don't know that, but that would give them.
Might have to shorten the disc golf course a couple of holes or something like that, maybe. But, yeah, that'll be the city's, to work within that.
Is there any opportunity for reshaping the waterway underneath the bridge? You've done the hydraulic studies and everything on that.
We haven't done the hydraulics. It's not as part of.
Like dredging?
I'm talking about on the south side.
Oh, okay.
I think there'd be an opportunity to reshape that riverbed to make it so more water would go underneath.
Yeah, and that's not currently part of the plan or part of the work that we're.
I'm not saying that we add that.
Yeah,
this
that's
is my access to my backyard.
probably a significant core issue as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Would that run into
there's a storm or a sanitary sewer in there as well.
Yep. Yeah, it runs diagonal kind of under that first span. Yep.
Just quick, as I looked at the calendar of events, I guess, does all this pre-work, if I read it correctly, we're going to hold a public hearing first part of February, and then by the end of February have bids back? That seems to be a quick turnaround, especially for a custom specialized project like that, but I'm assuming all this pre-announcement, working with folks.
It'll follow typical bid letting guidelines and schedules that the city has. It would be whether or not, like Mike said, we would have a pre-bid meeting put in there at some point. But otherwise, it follows the same, bid submittal schedule that any other project would with the city. So
It just seemed like a quick turnaround, and given the complexity of the project and stuff. And
Well, check plans, which are basically, as he said, 100% plans that are just going through a final review and approval process. That's when we can have these, we're looking at having a local bid letting. Already picked the date out, February 9th, which falls conveniently between the Iowa DOT bid letting in January and February, which are dates that we want to avoid. So this is the Iowa DOT letting schedule. So it's January 18 and February 21st. You want to stay away from those dates when you have a local letting, because everyone is really focused in on the DOT letting. So we have plenty of opportunity to get the plans finalized, have a pre-bid meeting, and then go through setting the public hearing in January and holding it first meeting in February. And then we do the bid opening on February 9th, and at the second meeting in February is when we would look at awarding. The bid opening is 10 days before the council meeting to award. As soon as they're open and tabulated, they're public, okay? So our intention is to get the word out to you, the council, and the public as to what the bid cost is on the bridge. There is then, and that's like 10 days before the council meeting acts on awarding the contract or rejecting the contract.
Wonderful briefing. Any last
Thank you for the
questions?
time.
My only one question that I had was on the pre-approved bridge constructors or not, was any of them a steel company from Michigan?
No.
Just checking.
If they want to go through the qualification process of the state, they're more than welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
good question.
Regular business, item number 7 is review of the current City of Waverly boards and commission appointments process. This, I think, came from Councilman Resnicek, not from the city. But maybe Pro Temp, do you want to weigh in on this at all?
Yeah, I had talked with Dave about this, and it had come up recently. I think it was last month. There was an appointment that was approved to a commission, and found out afterwards that there had been a commission member that had been sitting on it who was being replaced, and that commission member had thought that they were going to be reappointed or asked about being reappointed, and that was not known. And so I guess the question is, from the council perspective, of how much information should we have or could we get before making decisions like that? We don't want to get into a point where we're discouraging people that are on commissions thinking that they, can be willy-nilly replaced or anything like that. We also don't want to get into a situation where we're trying to vet candidates like, any kind of a national Supreme Court confirmation hearing or anything like that. So it's just kind of that, where's the balance in that, as far as knowing, are we replacing somebody? Is this a reappointment? I think a reappointment probably wouldn't need very much detail to it. But if there's a commission member leaving or a vacancy being filled, some information on as far as background on that, and what kind of a timeline we can get on that for information.
Thank you. Others like to weigh in?
I first just need a little more clarification on what's being proposed here. I can't quite tell. There's recommended city council action, and then it's to review those things there that are bulleted, and then there's the commentary before the summary statement that says the next steps will include staff assisting with drafting the appropriate documentation to require the above process be followed ongoing. So in general, I agree with what Tim just said. It's good to have more information than less, and to have it a little bit in advance of the meeting. But so I agree in spirit with all of that, and in principle. But I don't know what we're being asked to do here.
I think a little extra background information would be good, on the part, Mr. Mayor, you're making these appointments and, coming forward and saying that, hey, this is a person that we're replacing, he's been notified that he's not up for reappointment. And, not necessarily we don't have to go into reasons why, but, letting them know ahead of time, letting us know that there's someone that's being appointed in that case or replaced. I think that'd be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more background information other than just, we get the email saying that, these are the list of appointments.
I think some of the clarification. If it's a reappointment, I don't think there's much issue there typically in terms of reappointments, because it's good to have people that are on there for some long time. I know certainly having been liaison with planning and zoning, having a couple commission members there that have been there for a while, it's very helpful, especially with the comp plan and some of those things. Just knowing the process, but we also want to get fresh blood in and new ideas. And I know we've had, there's been some adjustment with commissions in terms of the gender equity laws and balances that we're supposed to have, and so trying to make sure we're doing that. But even that's just a simple little blurb saying this helps balance this commission or help balance our commissions overall, if that's the case. I think that is just getting that background information is the gist of the whole idea here, that we were voting on someone. Usually these don't seem to be that big of a deal, but this kind of came up after the fact that, was this something we should have known more about or should have had a heads up on if this was going on?
My understanding is that this individual was more than willing to continue serving,
I guess if this goes forward in any fashion, I think we may need to relook at, if I go out and look at the current charter on the mayor, it's very specific on the appointments that should be brought forward for council approval. And if I understand the appointment that brought this up, it's not even in the list. So I think to me it was more a courtesy that the mayor brought it forward. So if there's a feeling that all appointments need this scrutiny, I think we need to true up our statute that says all commissions that are out there and list them, because again, as I read it, and I asked Carla to make sure I was looking at the most current version of the mayor's authority, that commission position wasn't even necessary to bring forward. So I think we need to make sure we're educated in what we're asking the mayor to comply with if we go forward. And but yeah, I agree. A little good information is good, and sharing with a little advance notice is helpful in case there are some questions. But as I look at this is one of the only real authorities the mayor has other than signing documents. So I would hate to curtail his authority too much. And
Well, I think, I'm all in favor of, sharing this information, with you, Chuck, as mayor, and, if, hoping that we can maybe get a little bit more information. To me, I always look up when these come up, I always look up who else is on there, because I think, when you have the opportunity to add someone new, the makeup of the rest of the council or the commission or board is also important. But I guess I would favor just giving that as feedback, and hoping that you hear that and and honor it in ways that you're comfortable with. To regulate it. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's what we're being asked to do. But if we're being asked to regulate it in some way, I guess I think why gum up our processes even more with more code, you know? For some, I mean, code is necessary for some things, but
Thank you for your inputs, all. A few reflections. First, when we get to the qualifications for commissions, there basically are none. It's up there with being a city council person. There are no qualifications other than being a good person
And a resident.
and, have ability for clear thinking, energetic, positive, analytical when needed. But the process of selecting people for commissions is largely subjective. So if you put out qualifications to a person, on a person, it's an interesting slippery slope. Even if you did qualifications for candidates on a backup list with the possibility of rejection, you are opening yourself to diminishing interest in public service. So the precedence here with other mayors, including myself, is to not do that, lest we get on this slippery slope. Basically what happens is towns put a lot of energy into electing a mayor who's given the responsibility to provide direction to the city and to love that city, and then to select good people who have energy, positive, who will be part of a team. And it's a subjective effort and vision, and then cities need to then just trust the mayor to select good people. And that's been the process that's been real effective so far. We have the privilege here in Waverly of having strong boards, commissions, and committees. And but it does take, I'll be honest, it does take a nudge. It does take, because you're dealing with public service, and people need to be encouraged. So most of the appointees that you've approved have had a nudge from me to do public service. So and people who are busy need a special encouragement to include in their life public service. And it often works. But it's a delicate thing. What I do, when I promise to do, what we all do as mayor is work collaboratively. We work nonpartisan, and work with a love of the city. And then after that, it's just trusting the mayor to select people that will make all this gel and happen. It's a very, for me, almost sacred call. And I take great pride in building on the base of Mike Ackerman, Bob Brunkhorst, and now myself, building this. So we're at an all-time high in terms of momentum. Good feelings about the city, that all this is really working. But in the end, it's still a trust you place in me. I'm not comfortable also in giving reasons why a vacancy exists. The myriad of reasons why that you don't want to do that. And if you're going to give, because in the end, every commission member serves at the pleasure of the mayor. as approved by the city council. And if you're going to give a pleasure of the mayor status in public, you're dealing with an awkward situation, which you're going to diminish interest in public service. So I'm back to just saying that I'm continue to work collaboratively, nonpartisan, and with a true love of the city. I mean, I really do care. And I want these commissions to just hop and pop. And you have to trust me. Now, it might be a good idea to have our commission staff and chairs, maybe you're fairly new, city administrator, maybe you want to check with them to see how well the present system is working. And
Okay, I can do that, sir.
but that's my thoughts. It's not defensive.
No, and I appreciate those thoughts, and I understand, trying to find people that want to put the time in. We've talked about that with council, with people that are willing to put in the time to be on council. It's not always the easiest to have people that are interested in running for council. And same thing with commissions, to have that commitment to come in. And so it's that, what's finding that balance, and kind of just that, as I kind of framed it, it's trying to balance, for me, it's trying to balance between the idea of service and having people not want to go through the ringer necessarily to get appointed onto a commission, but also not be in a situation where once they're on a commission, if they feel like they're doing a service, not be simply discarded that might be.
Let me also say that the way we've structured this is also that these terms are fairly lengthy. And there's absolutely no right to a second term. It's you serve a lengthy period, and then it's done, unless you're reappointed. It also, someone has to care for the city. So let's say a commission, we don't now, but let's say you had some tensions, and so somehow, without addressing it, you have to address it. And you can do that through appointments. It's just absolutely necessary that you trust me to do that, or any mayor.
Trust without question, though, I guess is what I have a little bit. I mean, I think it's our responsibility as council to at least challenge a little bit. You bring forth, who you would suggest, and we trust that you have chosen the right person that you feel in your heart. But maybe, are you speaking for the whole council? Are you speaking for staff? Are you speaking for the commission?
No, I'm speaking only on behalf of the mayor, who's elected by the town. That's why you elect a mayor, to set the direction of the town and to seek out and appoint people who can further the town's needs and agenda. And like Councilman McKenzie said, this is why you elect a mayor. This is what you trust in the mayor. Now, I hear you though, Dan. There's just to be a little bit. That's why they have to have approval. Mm-hmm. And what I could do better, is come earlier.
And that's, I think that's the spirit
I'd surely
of this.
be willing. I think that it can try for a week, so that it comes printed like I did tonight. I think that would help, and that's that little subtle. And then you could do behind the scenes stuff, and contact me, because you might know something I don't know. There might be somebody who I'm appoint that I just had no idea of another. They could have a criminal background or something like that I don't know about, and you could get a hold of me and say, I know you submitted. I mean, it's easier if I don't have that person's name out in print, but it's still better that way before the approval and get. So there is. So I agree. It has to have, and that's where the the vote needs to come in, I think.
Right, because I think, I agree with Dan, I mean, and you both. I mean, trust is one thing, but we should be able, the place that we can ask questions is when it's on the agenda for a vote. But if we don't know that early, I mean, it's up to us, and then it's on us to do the homework. If you don't feel comfortable explaining, how you came to that decision, we can look at that, we can do our own research, we can express our own opinions about how that changes the existing commission, or for the better or for the worse. And, and that can all be expressed then through our action on your appointments.
But once it's on,
Yeah.
once it's on the agenda and that person's name is brought up in public for us to, as a council, reject that,
Well,
Well,
Yeah.
that
you
would
can
be-
do
that
it.
would
I
be a
mean, it'd
bad-
be,
Yeah.
But that would be a bad
done.
situation both for the council and for the person that's being nominated.
Well, yeah, but that's just the process. Or if you got to me and there's something pretty convincing, and I go, holy, I could simply
There again, you're
withdraw
pointing
it.
to making it
I could
early.
withdraw it and say, this is appointment that will be taking place.
But
Just
you'd say-
quietly do it, because I think we're going to protect the public at all times. Public service is a sacred, delicate process that we need to protect people, even if they're not going to be furthering in on the process. So I'd protect people at all times.
I mean, I had
But I
question-
could do that way.
I had questions with the understanding of what direction was being requested, of just open meeting regulations. If the mayor's sending out a memo to the whole council, here's my appointment, what do you think? I mean, that's really open meeting type things, and I don't know if that's an appropriate way to handle that either. So, to me, I think, again, if I'm hearing the council, is maybe a little advance notice would be helpful, and then we could ask some questions if we felt we needed to, before it becomes an official agenda item, and
Well, and when you bring up open meetings, and we've had plenty of times where we've had an agenda item, mayoral appointments, but no information until the day of, often, of this is who could be appointed, even sometimes coming in the night of the meeting. So that gets borderline on the open meetings as to how early it's been notified as to.
It doesn't. Your agenda item stays the same. It's just the mayor hasn't shared it unopenly, so he's waiting until that night. But your agenda item is still mayoral appointments.
But again, it gets into that, I mean, we could have an appointment vote on an item vote on Green Bridge with no other details than you're saying.
Basically. I mean, you wouldn't want to, but
again,
I'm just saying.
We're kind of saying that with this too. It's kind of, you don't want to, in the interest of fairness, to try to maybe
But
avoid this.
I agree.
Just go a
I
week,
think
maybe.
to come in earlier would be helpful to everybody, and then we'll agree to just get a hold of me personally and say, because I may not know. I mean, and even if I'm working collaboratively, we don't know everything. So I'm very open to, and then we'll finesse from there.
It would be nice if it was a replacement for someone, if that person is resigning or openly requested to be removed from the commission. That would be nice information as well, rather than just.
That's the one I'm a little bit, since you serve at the pleasure of the mayor. If we start getting into that status of pleasure of the mayor, you're in a slippery slope. I don't think that would protect people. I think that would hurt people.
I don't know that would matter to me. I can only speak for myself. I think what would matter to me more is who is the person, and how do I see that dynamic of that person, contributing or not, to the existing commission. Whether the person going off resigned or was, had a more sensitive conversation with the mayor before that, where that was encouraged, or, I don't really, honestly, I don't care about that. I mean, for that, I do trust the mayor. But for me, then, okay, who is it in enough time in advance so that I can sort of think about whether that makes sense to me or not, or whether I have any new information to add.
Okay, I agree.
I guess
We can do that.
one closing comment here is like the appointment tonight, it is not currently on the list that the mayor has to bring forward. So that may be a takeaway from this. We need to decide if only the commissions that are currently in the statute come forward this way. If it's a courtesy that the mayor elects to bring all of them forward, or we need to update the statute because of commission changes.
I think when I read the individual ordinances for each commission, though, they say the mayor shall appoint and the council shall approve.
Oh, okay.
So even if it doesn't say it in the mayor's,
Mayor code, it's under the commission.
it is under the commission code. Yeah.
It's just simply a language thing. We could probably clean that up in the mayor's side, just saying appointing commissioners. And
Right.
It needs to be cleaned up. Anyway. Board of Electrical Examiners is still on there.
We should probably clean that up. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to do that better. Early side of life. Moving on to mayoral appointments, I have Karen Lehman, Historic Preservation Commission. I'd like to reappoint. Is there a motion?
I will move approval of mayoral appointment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed with no. Unanimously approved. Staff comments?
I have none, Mayor, unless staff has anything they'd like to interject. Carla does.
I do have one item. Over the last 8 or 9 months, we've been working. We have a tool. Let me back up a little bit. We have a tool on our agenda manager that helps sort through and do a search on items in the agenda for archives and whatnot. That has not been working. As of lately, it actually just quit. So I am in the process of researching and trying to find something else. Unfortunately, it's called the Google Mini, and unfortunately that is obsolete and they no longer make it. So we're trying to find something that would be compatible for it. So unfortunately, you're not able to do a search on the agenda manager. If you know the exact date of the meeting, you can go to it and look it up. So anybody in the public or any of you that would like to find something, please give us our office a call and we'll help out as we can. But we'll try to find a resolution to that as quickly and painlessly as possible.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That's thorough. No other staff comments. Council comments? Edith?
Yes, I have a sort of a relaying of a comment and a question that if it could be answered now or soon, that would be good. I've had a call from a citizen near the grounds where the firemen's, I don't know the official word, convention, thank you, will take place. And concern about what they're seeing in terms of the mowing down of what they believe are prairie grasses and more permanent types of road materials being put down. And the question is how much of that will be restored or how much will be destroyed, how much will be restored after the Firemen's Convention.
Dennis has left. Anybody can answer that? That's why he was here. It's too bad we didn't do that earlier.
Well, we've fenced the play equipment and a good portion of the grass area of the park. The prairie area was basically stripped, and the trees and all the prairie plantings were removed, and then there was about 6 inches of ag lime over the top of that. It's my understanding that that will all be restored. Unfortunately, prairie takes about 3 years to be reestablished. So all the ag lime's got to be taken off, and then we have to replant it and baby it for about another 3 years after it's all done.
Make people medium happy.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I mean, I'll just say, and maybe it's because I wasn't paying close enough attention at the time, but I guess I just didn't realize all of that at the time that we approved the site. And that's the question I was asked, is how could you approve the site to begin with, knowing that this kind of environmental, at least temporary destruction of several years is happening. So I don't know if, just maybe we're beyond that now, but I think maybe if we can to try to reconstruct whatever it is we've deconstructed, and we talk about this, that go planning of putting.
Thank you.
Might be a good time to revisit with Chief Hopalong because of some planning they're doing for.
You'll be here,
activities.
study session time, I think, this month. Okay. Councilman?
How does summer come with stuff? What's our timeline with the pool?
Well, we're got short tonight, and that will be pretty much the case week so we're going from 3 to 7 p.m. Tonight through Thursday night, and then Friday night from 5:30 to 7:30 is the dog swim. After that, we dump the pool.
Oh, very good.
On top of that, then we got school starting up in another week or so.
Week from tomorrow, isn't it?
Yep, 23rd.
Okay.
I go back next Monday for workshops, and we get students in Cedar Falls in a week from Thursday. Sorry, Waverly kids, you get to go back a little earlier.
One thing you should go back and do is item G on the agenda. I don't think you touched on that.
Reports from commissions.
Oh, yes, thank you. You're supposed to catch that pro temp. We have boards and commissions reporting in. Leisure Services Commission for July 21st. Any comments? Officially received. We have the Senior Center calendar for August. Any comments? They continue to do well. Officially received. McKinsey, any comments?
No, I think I'm done for the night.
No mayoral comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
We adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Adjourned.